listening to Just Pod, Baby, a Las Vegas Raiders podcast brought to you by silverandblacktoday.com. And now your host, Evan Groat.
And let's go, Raider Nation. Welcome back to another episode of Just Pod, Baby. And thank you very much, Mr. Radio Announcer Guy, for the wonderful introduction. I tell you, we're getting a little fancy around here at Just Pod, Baby, real professional, I must say, and I like it. Make sure you're heading over to silverandblacktoday.com for all the latest and breaking news with the Raiders, Las Vegas' only independent Raiders news source. A lot going on this week at the show. At the top, we will discuss Derek Carr's recent interview with Vic Tafur of The Athletic. We're going to get into some of the comments that were made and why I think it could mean good things for the Raiders in 2020. In segment 2, we will discuss the current state of the AFC West division by taking an in-depth look at what each team did in free agency and the draft. And later in the show, I will be joined by a mammoth of a man, and that is our guest this week, starting right tackle, Trent Brown. You definitely don't want to miss that interview. All right, so let's get right into it. I'm sure many of you have seen the article by now, but those of you who did not, Raiders beat writer Vic Tafur of The Athletic got an exclusive interview this week with quarterback Derek Carr. Tafur covered a lot of ground, and I thought it was a really solid interview. I thought he asked some tough questions, questions that I'm sure Carr did not want to talk about, but they had to be asked. So I think it was a fair interview, and I thought Carr did a nice job with his responses as well. Now, the first thing that struck me was when Carr was asked about the addition of Marcus Mariota, and the fact that this is the first time that he will be pushed by a backup quarterback in his 7 years with the team. Now, I thought his response was really confident, and I was actually very happy with what he had to say. I like what he had to say about not looking over his shoulder, not looking to the left, not looking to the right. During reps, when he's getting reps at practice, he's only focused on himself. And I think that is a great attitude to have, because really, at the end of the day, the only thing that he can control are the things that he does. So it really serves him no purpose to be looking over his shoulder at what Mariota may be doing. I had our senior columnist at Silver and Black Today, Mo Moten, on just a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the draft. And he said that he felt that this would all play out in two ways for Carr this year. Either he's going to rise to the occasion, or the pressure of having a guy like Mariota behind him is going to make him crumble. So, Mo sees it as it's pretty black and white. It's either going to happen one or two ways. Now, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I think that Carr will rise to the occasion. And I know that I've been critical of him the past two seasons. And while he has done some good things, from a statistical standpoint, whether it's his yardage, going over 4,000 yards in consecutive seasons, whether it's his completion percentage, he did improve in those areas. But there still are moments during the season where you look at some of the plays that he makes and some of the decisions that he makes, and you wonder, is he the guy? And that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I know a lot of other fans are in the same boat. But I do think this is a big year for Derek Carr. This is the third year under Gruden and in his system. They went out and got him some help. We've discussed the additions at length, and more importantly, they upgraded the defense. And I think that's maybe going a little bit, flying a little bit under the radar right now. It's not being talked about enough. We're talking a lot about all the additions that were made on offense, but not enough about the additions that were made on defense. So I think the defense being improved is going to keep this team in games. It's going to take a little bit of pressure off of Carr and the offense. And I think it's going to do great things for him. So overall, I do expect Carr to play well this year. And in turn, it will produce more wins. Now, the next thing I want to touch on from the interview is the reputation that he has developed among the fan base as Captain Checkdown. We've all heard this, right? Now, I'm going to read you the quote that he said with Vic Tafur. quote, he says, we have philosophies that we live by, and we're going to continue to live by them. But at the same time, there's also times where you can see that I have Darren Waller on a 10-yard out, and I could have thrown the ball to the go route, but we completed the 10-yard out and got 16 yards. Is it really worth risking the go route rather than the 16-yard gain? So I took that comment when I first read that. I took it in a couple different ways. And I totally see where he's coming from. Yes, I think it's important that you take what the defense gives you, right? A 16-yard gain is a 16-yard gain. I mean, that's nothing to complain about. But I just think at times you need to be aggressive and you need to push the ball down the field, give your guys a chance to make a play, maybe draw a pass interference. At least get the defense thinking that you may try to go over top. And I just didn't think we saw that enough in 2019. Now, 2016, Derek Carr was a gunslinger. We know this. This kid was not afraid to take a chance. And I don't think he would have answered this question the same way back then. And I know that that was with a different OC. I know that this is with a play caller that has a different philosophy. But I do hope that at some point we get to see some of that Derek Carr that we saw in 2016 in 2020. That's the mentality that we need to see. And that all leads me to my final takeaway from the interview. And now I just talked about the reputation that he developed as a check down Charlie. But part of that is not all Carr's fault. Part of that falls on John Gruden's shoulders. That's what he has trained him to do. He doesn't want Carr to take a lot of chances. Gruden's offense is conservative by nature. Don't forget that. He wants to run the ball at you. He wants to control the clock. He wants to put 3 tight ends out there and pound it. And when it comes to the passing game, he wants to dink and dunk. That's just the philosophy. Now, for example, Carr says that Gruden could call a play, and 70% of the time, he wants the ball to go to that check down receiver. Okay, so when all of us are watching the game on TV and we're thinking, what the heck's he doing checking it down? Well, it's a scheme thing. That's what Gruden has instructed him to do many times. And the reasoning behind this, according to Carr, is because Gruden is trying to set up the next play. Okay? It's a chess match, as Carr says. Okay, later I may pump that check down and throw it right over their heads. Man, there's so much chess that's being played at all times. So again, there's a lot of stuff going on that we as fans, we just aren't aware of when we're watching it on TV. We see him make a 5-yard check down and, we want to complain about it. Okay, and that's the issue we have. But really, to be fair, we have to understand that this is part of the philosophy. Okay, but at the same time, that being said, I think if you want to compete with the likes of the Chiefs, who we know that Gruden is obsessed with, he's talked about it constantly, having to compete with the Chiefs, and I get it. But if you want to compete with the Chiefs, you got to open things up and you got to be more aggressive. Because the Chiefs are going to score. You are not going to stop Patrick Mahomes in that offense. You can try to slow him down. You can try to control the clock by running the ball. But at the end of the day, they can score and they can score quick. And if you want to compete with them, you have to be able to score quickly as well. Dinking and dunking isn't going to get it done, especially when you're playing from behind. We've seen what they've done. They've brought in a guy like Henry Ruggs, Lynn Bowden, who is going to be used as a joker, line him up all over the formation. You've got a lot more options now in that offense to go along with Tyrell Williams, Darren Waller, Renfro, Jacobs, and that great offensive line. So I do hope that Gruden allows Carr to be more aggressive and take some more chances. Alrighty. I'm going to step aside briefly. Okay, when I return, we will dive into the AFC West division and take a look at some of the changes that were made to the rosters. Be right back. Are you looking for a Raiders radio show and podcast with A-list guests and analysis of the Silver and Black? Make sure to catch Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM in Las Vegas. streaming nationwide on the free radio.com app. Join the team every Sunday from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time, or if you miss it live, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Silver and Black Today, Las Vegas' only all Raiders talk show from the capital of Raider Nation, Las Vegas. Okay, let's get into the division here. Let's take a look at what some of these teams have done. And we're going to start with the Los Angeles Chargers. And like the Raiders, the Chargers will also be moving into a new stadium this year. They will share their stadium, however, with the Rams out there in Los Angeles. Now, when you look at all the moves that were made within the division, I think it's fair to say that the Chargers probably saw the biggest loss occur within their roster, and that was Phillip Rivers, who was a longtime quarterback for them, face of the franchise, killed the Raiders a few times over the years, so we're happy to see him go. Now, Rivers did hit free agency, and he left town to sign with the Colts. They also saw Melvin Gordon opt to leave in free agency. He signed with the Broncos, which I'll get into that more so when I touch on the Broncos. They also traded away left tackle Russell Okung, and they did lose veteran linebacker Thomas Davis. So those were some of the key losses that they saw on the roster, but they also made some additions, and some very good ones, I may add. I really like what they did. First, they re-signed a couple of their own players, tight end Hunter Henry and running back Austin Eckler. He got a big deal. And both of these guys, I think this was a good or a important move for them to make, because both of these guys play a key role in their offense and what they try to do. I mentioned the trade of Russell Okung. They dealt him to Carolina. In return, they acquired right guard Trey Turner, and that's a big-time upgrade for them. I think they really won that deal. Turner's one of the better guards in all of football. They decided to keep the additions going to the offensive line in free agency. They signed Brian Bulaga, who was a longtime member of the Green Bay Packers, and he's also a very good offensive lineman. He'll be playing right tackle for them. His issue as of late has been injuries. So when he's available, he can get it done. But, that's not always the case. He's not always available. So right now, on paper, that right side of the line is looking pretty good for the Chargers. Now, on defense, they also made some moves, some very good ones, I may add. They brought in Chris Harris Jr., who we know had an offer from the Raiders, but he decided that the Chargers were a better fit for him, so he decided to go with the Chargers. And we know that he can still play. We've seen a lot of him over the years. He's going to be the age 31 when this season starts, but he can still get it done. Okay, and they continued to add to the defense. They brought in some help to bolster the defensive line. They signed tackle Linval Joseph, who's, again, a very good player. He is also 31 years old, but he can still play. So that's what they did in free agency. And then when you look at the moves that were made in the draft, the big splash move was selecting a quarterback, Justin Herbert, which is what many people thought they would do. They took him with their first round pick, which I believe was the 6th overall pick. And it seems like Herbert will have every opportunity to try to win that job over Tyrod Taylor. Then later in round 1, they selected my guy, Kenneth Murray, who I absolutely love this guy. If you listen to the show, you know how much I really liked Murray. He's going to join an already strong defense. And then they were able to grab a running back, Joshua Kelly from UCLA, to kind of pair with Eckler. So overall, I really like what the Chargers did to improve themselves. Their defense is going to be strong. It was already pretty good, and they brought in guys like Murray, Joseph, Harris. They're going to go along with Derwin James, Ingram, Bosa, Hayward. It's a really good group. The issues for them, I believe, will be similar to the issues they had last year, and that is, what will they get from the quarterback? Phillip Rivers did not have a very good year, and I think it really hurt them. Herbert, I liked him. If you listen to the show, you know that I liked him through this draft process. I think he's going to be a very good pro at some point, but when will that be? I don't know. I can't answer that question right now. I think without having an off-season program, OTAs, rookie mini camp, all of those things, I think that's really going to hurt his development early on, at least in his first year. And I think it's likely we will see Tyrod Taylor win that starting job. Now, in Taylor, they're getting a game manager. You know what you're going to get from a Tyrod Taylor. He isn't the type of guy that has proven that he can beat you with his arm. He's a mobile quarterback. He can extend plays. But bottom line, he's got some weapons around him, and they've got a strong defense. So really, that's the recipe to win with a guy like Tyrod Taylor. I believe that's what they did in Buffalo, is they supported him with a good defense. He didn't have the weapons that he has here in Los Angeles. So, he can get it done. He's not a Phillip Rivers by any means. So that's going to be the big question mark for the Chargers going forward, is what will they get from the quarterback in 2020? Moving on to the Denver Broncos, they were also very active this offseason. Let's start with the coaching staff, though. An underrated addition to what they were able to do in the offseason was to bring in Pat Shurmur to be their offensive coordinator, along with Mike Shula as their quarterback coach, both coming over from the Giants. Now, you can say what you want about Shurmur's experience as a head coach, his latest being with the New York Giants, and that maybe not going as well. But he does have a decent track record as a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator, especially when you look at what he was able to do with Case Keenum in Minnesota. And I think it's even when you look at Daniel Jones, you can say that he was at least trending in the right direction as far as his development is concerned. When I was doing some research for the show, I came across an article with Drew Lock, and he was saying just how excited he was to work with Shurmur, and that he feels that this offense has a lot of potential now to be pushing the ball down the field. And if you are familiar with Drew Lock at all, then you know that one of his big strengths is his arm and his ability to make those downfield throws. So it certainly sounds like this is going to be a good marriage for them. Now, starting in free agency, some of the players that were added include Melvin Gordon, who I mentioned earlier, and guard Graham Glasgow in free agency. And they also added a couple players through trades, Jarrell Casey from the Titans and cornerback A.J. Bouye from the Jaguars. Now, they did lose Chris Harris Jr., but they were able to get a pretty serviceable guy there in return with Bouye. I think Gordon and Philip Lindsay, are going to form a really solid 1-2 punch. And Gordon brings an added dimension to the offense with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. So I like the move there. And, you want to support your young quarterback. You do that by running the ball. And I think Gordon and Lindsay allow you to do that. Now, through the draft, they brought in some big-time weapons for Drew Lock, starting with Jerry Jeudy, followed by KJ Hamler and Albert O from Missouri. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that last name. But they definitely got faster. That's for sure. I know that Jeudy was a 4.4 guy. KJ Hamler is he didn't run the 40 at the combine, but they say he's a sub 4.4 guy. And then the tight end Albert O from Missouri, he ran 4.49, and he's like 260 pounds. So they definitely got faster and more athletic, and that really seems to be the trend that the division is going in. That's to get faster and more athletic. You throw in the selection of Lloyd Cushenberry, who at center, who was regarded as one of the best centers in the draft. I think he's going to come in and compete right away to start. That offense is loaded right now on paper. Okay, now you can declare them the paper champs if you want, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. But I think that roster, that offense looks a lot better. Think about it for a second. We talked about Gordon, we talked about Lindsay in the backfield, Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, who were there last year. Combine them with Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Albert O. That offense is explosive. They could really score some points, especially if they're, looking to push a ball downfield. But there's a big but here. Much like with any team in this league, and I talked about it when we discussed the Chargers, it comes down to quarterback play in this league. Drew Lock, he made only 5 starts last year. Okay, he did well. Okay, he won some games. But he attempted only 156 passes. He still has a long ways to go, is what I'm saying. Okay, we did see some good things from Lock, but to judge a quarterback and what his career will be like on 5 games is unfair right now. But the truth be told, Elway has done a nice job surrounding Locke with talent and coaches that should help bring out the best in Locke. And finally, we get to the defending Super Bowl champs. As much as that pains me to say that, still can't believe it. Still makes me sick when I think about it. But as far as I'm concerned, the Chiefs remain the cream of the crop in this division. We all know that. And that is because they have the great equalizer in Patrick Mahomes. And so, again, as much as it pains me to say it, he is so far and away the most talented quarterback in this division that as long as he's on the field, the Chiefs are always going to have a competitive advantage. That's just fact. Whether you want to ignore it or not, that is fact. Now, as far as what they were able to do in the offseason, they were kind of quiet, and they didn't make a whole lot of moves, which they really don't have to. They did franchise tag defensive tackle Chris Jones, who was a major disruptor in the middle of their defense, which was a very smart move. And they plucked DeAndre Washington from the Raiders, actually. He, running back. So, again, not a whole lot of moves made in free agency. But again, when you got a roster as talented as theirs and you got a quarterback like Mahomes, not a whole lot of moves that need to be made. Now, in the draft, they used their first selection on Clyde Edwards-Helaire from LSU. He is going to fit right in with Andy Reid in that offense. He fits exactly with what the type of things that they like to do. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can run it. I think he was one of the more underrated players in this draft, and I think he'll be a really good addition for them. And they've got some depth now at that running back position with Damien Williams. The running back position looks pretty good for them. Now, they also they needed some help on defense. We know that early in the season, the defense was kind of their Achilles heel, and they really started to turn it around second half of the year when they made that run to the Super Bowl. But they did add a linebacker, Willie Gay Jr., in the draft, and he's your prototypical linebacker in today's NFL. He runs 4.46. He can cover. He can tackle. I did see a lot of draft analysts after Kenneth Murray and Patrick McQueen. A lot of people thought Willie Gay Jr. was the next best guy. So they got a good linebacker there, and they got him late in the second round. So they got some good value out of that pick. Lucas Niang was another notable draft selection for them, who they picked up in the third round out of TCU. Now, they don't necessarily need a starting tackle at either right or left, but he will provide them with some depth. And that's really what you're looking to do if you're the Chiefs. Just continue to build that roster, add some depth. And, they're going to have to pay Patrick Mahomes pretty soon. So they're not really looking to lock themselves into any large contracts right now. But again, as long as Patrick Mahomes is on that roster, then the Chiefs are going to continue to lead the way here. Now, just some final thoughts on the division as a whole. The AFC West belongs to the Chiefs, and everyone's just trying to catch them. Okay, I made that very clear. You can see the trend amongst the teams is to get faster and more explosive on offense. That seems to be the recipe that the rest of the division believes you need to have in order to beat the Chiefs. You have to be able to keep up. You have to be able to score points quick in order to keep up with this high-octane offense that Andy Reid and the Chiefs have. And I think that the second part of that is a lot of teams have realized that you also have to be fast on defense, not only offense, but defense, and you have to be able to cover. I think the Raiders are a very good example of that. When you look at what they did in free agency, they brought in a linebacker that can run like Corey Littleton, who's going to help cover the middle of the field, tight ends, backs. And they did bring in some help in the coverage department with Demarius Randall through free agency and Damon Arnett and Amik Robertson in the draft. So that seems to be the recipe. Whether teams can actually make it happen is yet to be seen. Now, one other thing that I do want to talk about that I think actually works in the Raiders' favor is, and I've said this many times, and I think you all know this, that in this league, you have to have competent quarterback play. And if you happen to have a quarterback who's elite, well, then you're going to be perennial playoff contenders year in and year out. And the Chiefs have that right now. They have the best quarterback in the league, and that is why they're the team to beat. Now, if you want to rank the next 3 best quarterbacks in the division, I think it's fair to say that Derek Carr would be the second. Okay? Followed by Drew Lock or Tyrod Taylor, however you want to rank the 3rd and 4th quarterbacks. But I do think Carr falls into that second spot. And I didn't mention Justin Herbert because he's a rookie quarterback, and you just don't know what you're going to get from him in his first year. So I didn't really think it was fair to rank him. But I do think having Carr, who's got plenty of experience in the league, he's now in his 3rd year under Gruden. They've got weapons around him. I think that gives the Raiders an advantage over the Broncos and the Chargers because, again, you just don't know what you're going to get with their quarterback situations. And that is a major, major factor when you're looking at, when you're trying to predict how teams will finish in the division. Alrighty, we are going to get to another quick break. We're going to get one out of the way here. And then up next is my discussion with this week's featured guest, Trent Brown. And welcome back to Just Pod Baby, part of the Silver and Black Today Media Group. We now go out to the phones and welcome in our guest for this week, and that is Las Vegas Raiders starting right tackle, Trent Brown. Trent, we appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day to chat with us. How's it going, big man?
Going well. How about you?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Now, Trent, the thing about you that I love is your story and your perseverance to get where you are today with the Raiders. You have truly earned everything that you have gotten in this league. It's not often you see a 7th-round draft pick go on to be a starting left tackle in the Super Bowl. You get to protect the blind side of one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and then you become the highest paid tackle in NFL history. Now, I'm sure you always play with a chip on your shoulder, but I'm curious to find out, since you've reached the pinnacle in the sport, you've got the Super Bowl ring, you've got the big contract. What is it now that continues to motivate you to be great?
I have a set of personal goals that I want to obtain, and I also definitely am not afraid of money. Definitely not afraid of money, and I for sure I got a couple of all pros out there that I want to get a hold of. Some more championship rings. Just wins all around. Honestly, want to have a nice polished career, and end with the gold jacket.
That's great because, I just, as I was thinking about this interview, you've always kind of been the underdog. And in fact, on your website, you refer to yourself as the greatest underdog. And now it kind of seems like you're finally on the other side of that. You're on top of your game. And so it's just interesting to kind of hear your perspective on that. I want to go back to last season real quick, if you don't mind. We talked about being the highest paid tackle in NFL history. You signed the mega deal with the Raiders, very well deserved, I may add. Now, sometimes in sports, you hear about athletes who sign a large contract with a new team, and in that first year, they feel some pressure to try to live up to that contract. Did you feel any of that pressure last season, or was it just business as usual for you?
It's just business as usual. I've always felt like I deserved it before I got it. And I feel like that's just kind of manifestation, I guess you could say. I just always believed that I should have. I believe that I should have been a first rounder. I believe I was the best offensive lineman in 2015 draft class. And I just always carry myself that way. And I go to approach my work and game days in such a manner that I believe that I've always been the best. And when I touch the field on Sundays, I want to prove that.
Yeah, that's interesting too. What is it that you think, because I know you went the JUCO route out of high school. You found your way to Florida. You had to earn your way to the starting lineup there. We know that you were a 7th-round draft pick. What is it that you think coaches and scouts, what is it that you think, why have they been sleeping on you for so long?
Well, I after I got drafted in the 7th round, when I got to the team, a couple of the executives upstairs and that, so they told me that they didn't say who or what was actually said, but they just said they didn't help you out. So I just took that as coming out of the University of Florida, they were bad-mouthing me and all this and that, which I don't see what any coach could gain from that. Honestly, the more higher draft picks you have, the more appealing your school and your program becomes. But, hey, that's neither here nor there. I'm a Super Bowl champion, and I'm $66.75 million later.
Yeah, that's right. It all works out for you.
Yeah.
All right, now back to last season. You played in 11 games. The injury bug got to you a little bit. You had the calf, you had the knee, and then eventually your season was ended with the pectoral injury that landed you on IR. And despite those injuries, you showed a lot of toughness, and I think your teammates appreciate that. I know the fans do, trying to play through some of those injuries. I'm curious, how are you feeling physically right now?
I'm feeling good. Ready to go.
Pectoral injuries all completely healed. You're lifting weights and working out?
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. Now, I know injuries are a part of the game, and many times, especially being an offensive lineman, sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then the next thing you know, your ankle, your knee's getting rolled up on. But is there anything that you can focus on in your off-season training that will help you, maybe stay a little bit more durable?
No, sir. I believe I've been keeping the same training regimen since I've been in the league. Honestly, I'm picking up more on the body maintenance part of it.
Yeah, and you've been pretty relatively healthy too. I think last year was one of the first years that you've really dealt with injuries.
Yep.
Now, as I mentioned, you played in the 2018 season with the New England Patriots, and then you came over to join the Raiders. Now, I'm very interested to get your opinion on the coaches. I'm sure you've been asked this a million times. From what we get to see on TV and in the media as fans, Coach Gruden and Belichick, they seem very different. Belichick is much more reserved. He's a quiet guy. Again, in the media, he seems to be very cerebral. And then you have a guy like Gruden, who used to work in the media himself, a much more animated guy. Could you tell us a little bit about what it's like to play for both coaches, and are they as different as they appear to be?
I can definitely say with both of them that what you see is what you get. Nothing from interviews and all that stuff. Nothing changes when it comes to coaching. Like Coach Gruden is still kind of upbeat and live, entertaining, if you will, with the guys, and then Belichick, to me, I guess because I have kind of an old soul, is just as entertaining. But definitely, it's been a pleasure to play for Coach Gruden, and it was definitely a pleasure to play for Coach Belichick.
Trent Brown joined us here on Just Pod Baby. So let's look ahead now to the 2020 season. It's going to be the first ever season of NFL football in Las Vegas. How pumped are you about getting to be a part of all this? I know there were some leaks coming out today with the NFL schedule being released. It sounds like you guys are going to be opening up that new Allegiant Stadium on Monday Night Football versus the Saints. What is the level of excitement like among you and your teammates?
Oh man, we're all super excited. First and foremost, to get away from those high ass taxes in California.
I love your honesty, man.
But second, I think everybody's super excited to kind of get a breath of fresh air in a new city, new stadium, new surroundings, new everything. You know what I mean? We get to blaze our own trails and be a part of a fresh start. Everybody's just super excited about it. A lot of opportunities, I feel like, will come from us being a part of the first large organization to play in the city, and I think it's going to be fun.
Now, I've had the chance to get a couple of your teammates on the podcast in the recent weeks, and it sounds like more and more guys are out there. Have you had a chance to get settled in out there in Las Vegas yet, or are you still waiting to make the move?
I'm waiting to make the move. I got a family, so I'm pretty much been staying put.
Now, Trent, I'd like to talk about the offensive line here for just a second. When you look at the makeup of the roster I think it's safe to say that the strength of the team is at the O-line. Now tell me, how important is it to have that entire group back again this year, and how dominant do you think that group can be if healthy?
Man, I was saying it last year. We got the best O-line in the league. And I don't care who debates me. I go debate anybody. We got the best O-line in the league. You know what I mean? And for us to not really have the passing game to kind of the complementary offense, I say, for us to still have 1,000-yard rusher, over 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, that just speaks volume to the O-line and our running back and tight ends as well.
Yeah, you talked about the passing game just now, complementary offense. What do you think of bringing in a guy like Henry Ruggs? You happy to see him?
And I'm happy to get anybody that's going to come in and make some plays. You know what I mean? It's just going to open up that box a little bit more because you can't put that 8 guy down there in the box. You got to put somebody over the top that's going to help with all that speed that we just picked up.
Now, last season, you guys were knocking on the door of the playoffs, and I think we know the injuries obviously built up, and it took a toll down the stretch, which contributed to a poor finish. But when you look at the progress that was made last season, and you combine that with the players that were brought in through free agency and the draft, you have to be feeling pretty good about where the roster is on paper right now. So my question for you is, what is it going to take for the Las Vegas Raiders to finally break through in 2020?
Well, I think we have the recipe. I think the coaches do a good job of preparing us and putting us all in the right situations, in the right places. But with those extra added horses on the outside, like I said, I feel like the sky's the limit, honestly, for us offensively and defensively. And if you look at the division as a whole, the whole division got stronger. So, I mean, the AFC West is, back, I'd say.
I agree. I actually was speaking about that earlier in this podcast about how if you look at what has been done with all of these teams in the offseason, they all got faster, and it's going to be the wild AFC West, I think, this year. Now, because of the coronavirus pandemic, NFL teams have not been able to conduct their off-season training programs as they normally would, obviously. We know that you guys are doing virtual team meetings and workouts. How has that been going, and has it presented any challenges?
Other than, the technical difficulties here and there, nothing's really been any challenge. Everybody, we've conducted our meetings successfully every day. We just finished today's Thursday, right? We just finished our 8th one today. So, that's our second week down. So, we're just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and we'll see where it's at when at the end of all this.
This will be a fun one for you here. You've gone up against some really good pass rushers in your career. Von Miller actually referred to you as he believes you're a top 5 tackle in the league. Is there a guy that you just love going against who maybe you feel like gives you a good challenge when you're out there against them?
I love going against everybody, but I definitely love going against those elite pass rushers. And our division is full of them. I really feel like every division I played in was full of them. When I was in San Fran as a young guy, you got Seattle that was loaded. You got Arizona loaded. You got who else is in that division? I can't. Seahawks, Arizona. Well, the Rams loaded. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're battle tested, Trent. That's the good news. Very good. Now, Trent, before I let you go here, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of tell the listeners about some of the charity work that you've been doing. I know that you have a foundation, 77 Cares, and you have recently done some really good work in the state of Nevada with the Clark County School District. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So I recently launched my foundation, and I was approached with the opportunity to do something big to help out the school systems out there, and it was really amazing, honestly, to be able to make such a great impact on people, so they could still complete schoolwork and work from home, considering the current circumstances. Trent,
I want to tell you something. My full-time work, my career, I'm a teacher. And so to hear that you are, donating money to the school system and helping out so many students who are in need, it really makes me happy to hear that you're doing that. So many students are being affected by this, not having the resources that they need to do this distance learning that is going on in our country right now. So I really commend you for the work that you've done there. Also, be sure to check out Trent's website, TB77official.com. I actually went on there today. I ordered myself a TB77 hoodie, Trent. Do those things run true to size? I'm not a very big guy. I'm only about 5'8", so I went with the large. How's it going to fit me?
Yes, sir. It's going to fit true to size. It'll be out tomorrow, actually.
Perfect. All right, Trent. We appreciate you giving us some of your time today. I know I speak for all of Raider Nation when I say that we are looking forward to see you and the guys out there this year. We wish you nothing but good health and success in the upcoming season, my friend.
Thank you.
And we're back for some final thoughts here before we wrap this one up. Big thanks again to Trent Brown for coming on the show. And real quick, one of the things that he discussed that really stuck with me is when he was talking about getting the big contract last season and how it was something that he really always envisioned for himself. It didn't come as a big surprise to him because he just thought it was something that he would always accomplish, getting that payday, being a Super Bowl champion. And I think it really goes to show you the type of belief and confidence that he has in himself. And regardless of where he was drafted, his confidence never wavered in himself. And I think he just continued to put his head down and work. And as we know, the rest is history. And as he also said, his next goals are to win multiple championships and eventually earn himself a green jacket. So a great spot there with Trent. Again, we thank you very much. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Just Pod Baby with Evan Groat. Hope you enjoyed the show. Do me a favor, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you download your podcasts. As always, just win, baby.